People really misunderstand God's laws. Most of the time when people think about like why God puts rules in place, we tend to think of it in terms of like, God is wanting us to be holy like him, or it's about, some type of righteousness or piety or like being a good person or morality. These are all the different types of terms that we tend to associate to God's laws. But what you have to think about is that absent of sin, there really isn't a right and wrong way to do things. There's just the way that things are done. And when you understand this, you begin to realize that God's laws are not about morality. They're not about whether or not you're being a good person. Rather, they have to do with the order of the universe. So if you take a step back from kind of human governance, right? Human rules, human morality, and just look at the universe as a whole, there are rules and laws that God has put in place to govern the universe. Or another way you could put it is there are rules and laws that he has put in place to govern the bodies that occupy the universe. So, for instance, we have planets, we have Earth, we have the moon, we have the sun, right? All these things. And there are forces or natural laws that have been put in place that keep all of these things at the right distance from each other. So, for instance, if the Earth gets too close to the sun, everybody dies. If the moon gets too close to the Earth, it causes tsunamis. Everybody dies, right? You get the idea. So, the way you could think about it is that God has put certain rules and laws in the universe, particularly as pertains to the earth, that create an environment where life is able to survive, most importantly, but then also thrive. And so long as the material universe continues to obey God's rules, then humanity has an environment or a staging ground where we are able to then survive and thrive. Now, if you take that concept and you extrapolate it out to what we call human morality or human rules, human laws, or we could look at God's laws for how humans engage with one another, the way you could explain this is that God's laws, just like the natural laws that govern the material bodies in the universe, God's laws for us are designed to govern the human bodies in the universe, and most particularly their relationship to one another. So, just like there are natural or physical laws that exist in the universe that govern the relationship between the earth, the sun, and the moon, there are God's laws for humans that govern human relationships to the things that they will encounter in the universe. So the first one is love the Lord your God, right? What does that have to do with? Well, that word love in the Old Testament, anyway, Hebrew, is this concept of devotion. Or another way you could put it is, what do you put as the highest priority in your life? Okay. And so he's saying that our relationship to all things that exist in the universe, time, space, whatever, of all things, God should be at the highest level of priority. Now, how does that protect us? Because again, you have to remember that all of these laws have to do with protecting or producing an environment where we are able to survive and thrive. So how does loving the Lord our God protect us? Well, having God as the absolute highest priority over anything else in your world actually protects you from putting too much trust, love, or devotion in something that's going to fail you. So think about it like this. If you put the essence of your being, trust, love, all of that into a person, well, people are corrupt. People make mistakes. People are frail. People will fail you. And if you've placed the totality of your hope, of your being, of your faith, of your trust, of your heart, of your love, of your devotion into something that is, first of all, impermanent, because everything in this natural universe is impermanent, and it's something that is corrupted and has the ability to fail, then when it fails, it is devastating to your life. But if your love, if your devotion, if your highest order begins with God, then everything else in your life can fail you, but you still have something you're holding on to that is stable. And if you just go down the list, you can literally see how each thing governs our human relationships to things that exist in the world. Mothers and fathers, right? Honor your mother and father. Don't commit adultery. How we engage in relationships sexually, right? You go down the list. Don't steal. That's our relationship to possessions. Don't covet. Our relationship to our neighbor's possessions. Within the Ten Commandments, there is a command that basically covers, in principle, the relationship between every single thing that a human being will ever encounter in the earth. Now, when we violate those rules, then what we do is we create instability in our environment for everyone. Every time you violate these rules, when an individual violates the rules, it spreads like a cancer, and eventually you get a culture that's violating these laws, these orders, the way that these relationships are supposed to function, and it creates chaos in the community for basically everyone. And eventually that chaos leads to death, destruction, and an uninhabitable or an environment where people are not able to not only survive in some cases, but definitely not thrive. And so all of these laws and rules, they're not about spoiling your fun. They're not about some type of piety or anything like that. You have to remember that these rules and laws, they transcend a world full of sin. Once you take away sin, there really is no right and wrong. There's just the way that things are done.